kind of UV radiation defeating like iron, zinc, aluminum, and copper. And this property inhibits the formation of free radicals and reduces the reactive oxygen species that have already been produced. Now, flavonoids give protection to plants from pathogens and herbivores. They secrete substances such as phytoalexins and lignins that act as a barrier to prevent the spread of pathogens and regulate the expression of these genes that produce protective metabolites like flavonols. So, legumes, this plant family, the pea and bean family, such as soya bean and chickpea, they produce isoflavonoids, which play an important role in defense against pathogens for the plant. So, vesitol, which comes from the class of isoflavones, is the main phytoalexin synthesized by lotus, so the lotus species. Within that, there is a C-glycosol flavonol called mycin, and other compounds such as apomycin. Now, these are actually and methoxymycin. These are secreted by maize in response to the pest corn earworm, for instance. And it also interferes with its amino acid metabolism in the guts of the meal pest corn earworm. So it has a twofold kind of activity as a pesticide, because it creates these toxic quinones in the guts of these earworms. And so again, quite an ingenious mechanism by which these things act to be anti-feedants. And so the quinones bind to the sulfhydryl group and the NH2 group of proteins and amino acids, and they reduce their availability. Most important and major class of flavonoids that play a role in plant pollination is the anthocyanins, as I said, that are present in flowers and fruits, and the pigment colours so vivid in the berries. Now, when we look at this kind of UV photography or UV movies of bees and flowers, you see these weird lurid purples and violets, and that's what the bees are seeing. And these anthocyanins, they strongly colour that way, and so they're like targets. The bees flying around, they see these bright fluorescent targets and they know exactly where they're going because the background is not the same. Okay, so another interesting fact is that flavonoids also play an important role in the rhizosphere region of the roots of the plant by stimulating spore germination and chemoattraction of rhizobia. And they also amplify the expression of what they call nod genes. Now, a plant secretes flavonoids in response to infection by rhizobia bacterial species such as azorhizobium, bradyrhizobium, mesorhizobium, and cynorhizobium. You probably recognize what we're going to get to here. As a result, the plant oozes out flavonoids. Now, when these bacteria interact with the plants, they form a nodule as a kind of inflammatory response, and the bacteria remain inside the nodule as a bacteroid. Now, this process results in the nitrogen fixation we are familiar with, the Rhizobacteriaceae, conferring nitrogen fixation specifically to members of the plant family, the Leguminosae, or pea and bean family. So, another interesting fact about flavonoids and the interaction, this kind of symbiotic relationship and the expression of chemicals that turn out to be positively beneficial for the plant, and the rhizobia gets food source from the plant that it can't generate on its own. So it's a good symbiotic relationship. Many people are very familiar with P and Bs and how they fix nitrogen in the soil for our benefit and the plant's benefit, obviously. Okay, you're listening to Ask Your Herbs, Dr. KBDGR 91.1 FM, and from 7:30 till the end of the show, you're invited to call in with questions either related to this month's subject or any other questions based on herbal medicine or disease, pathology, etc. The number here is 707-923-3911. So from 7:30 till the end of the show, you're invited to call in. Okay. All right, so let's see here. So polyphenols, let's talk a little bit about polyphenols, and I wanted just to mention a couple of things here, and then we're going to get into the vitamin discourse. You know, Dr. Pete was always, and we are, an advocate of natural foods. You know, get your vitamins from natural foods. Anyway, so we'll look at that in a bit, but it's 7:23 now. So polyphenols then. So the polyphenols of note that are produced with medicines, herbal medicines that we're familiar with, things like rosemary, oregano, sage, marjoram, and winter savory. These are some good medicinal plant genera producing abundant polyphenols. Now, all of these are going to be very aromatic. So when you hear the word phenol, you look at a phenol group and you look at that as being extremely aromatic. And these things that you can smell them when the sun's shining, on rosemary or oregano, or you just bump them in the garden, or sage, you instantly get a waft of these aromatic compounds coming into the air, and these are typically the polyphenols. So, as I said earlier, based on syndromes and patient characteristics and guided by the theories of traditional Chinese medicine, formula are designed to contain a combination of various kinds of crude drugs. Now, when combined, generally assume that a synergism of all the ingredients will bring about the maximum of therapeutic activity. The increasing evidence has shown that multiple active component combinations of TCM could amplify the therapeutic efficacy of each agent, representing this trend for modern medicine to come. I don't know that it ever will in terms of pharmaceuticals, but they always want to pull out the individual active ingredient, and herbal medicine and traditional Chinese medicine really doesn't do anything like it. We use whole plants. Okay, so I've got a note on the table here. I don't know if people can hear me properly, but I've got to sit here and I've got to swallow the microphone then. Okay, so, all right. Multi-drug resistant bacteria, okay, and the efficacy of the synergistic, this is a paper here, I just wanted to quote this paper, it's a 2023 paper. Multi-drug resistant bacteria and the efficacy of the synergistic interaction between natural polyphenolic extracts and the bactericidal effect were demonstrated. So, having just talked about synergy and polyphenolics and antibacterial, I thought this would be a pretty quick, simple, succinct paper just to quote. All right, 2023 paper. and it's entitled Synergistic, Antagonistic and Additive Effects of the Resultant Antioxidant Activity in Infusions with Green Tea with Bee Honey and Citrus Limonum Extract as Additives. Okay, so basically it's lemon tea, right? Okay, so how synergistic is lemon tea, folks? It's just to show it in context of the science that's behind proving synergy, and this was a 2023 paper. So it highlighted that bioactive compounds of different sources have interactions when combined. That the interactions between bioactive compounds are synergism, antagonism, and additivity, and that the individual functionality of each element varies from that of the combined state. The observed total phenolic content as a measure of activity for values of the resulting infusions were greater than the mathematical sum of the total phenolic content exerted by the individual components. So that's synergy right there. Okay, I'll read that again. The observed total phenolic content as a measure of activity for values of the resulting infusions were greater than the mathematical sum of the total phenolic content exerted by the individual components. A synergistic effect on the total phenolic content of the resulting infusion was observed after adding bee honey and citrus limonum extract. Okay, so if you're going to have green tea or tea, you can take it with lemon and honey, and there will be a measurable and observable increase in the synergistic additive effect. Okay, all right. So that's pretty much, see here, we're 7:30. I just got a few other examples of plants and medicinal herbs with particular flavonoids, and then I'll just get into the discourse here on why Dr. Pete was so opposed to vitamins, I think, and most vitamins in general, but we'll go through those. There are some got good natural, there's natural and organic, and then there's synthetic, right? And then we're going to get into a bit of a discourse about Bill Gates's into GMO crops and feeding the world and the children with synthetic vitamins. Okay. All right, so, excuse me, flavonoids then. Most of these are flavonoids. There's a few polyphenols and polysaccharides and amides, but essentially, so quercetin and camphorol improved LDL-C uptake more effectively. Another flavonoid here, acacetin and apigenin, promoted the phosphorylation of AMPK. Another flavonoid, rutin and epicatechin, green tea, one of those compounds, showed a very significant improvement in body weight and a potent anti-hyperglycemic activity. So good for people that have high blood sugar or insulin resistant, so green tea. More flavonoids, so quercetin, catechin, hesperidin, and isoramnitin. This downregulated the mRNA expression of a particular gene for LDL. Polysaccharides next. These high molecular weight dextrin and low molecular weight heteropolysaccharides demonstrated stronger inhibitory effect on nitric oxide, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin-6. These are inflammatory markers and mediators. And then polyphenols, things that are coming out of seeds and skins and red wine. These are called the oligomeric proanthocyanidins and pterostilbenes. Improve the LDL to HDL ratio, and atherogenic, or the atheroma forming index, was suppressed by 59.3 and 25%. And then the last thing here are the polyphenols, catechin, hesperidin, ferulic acid, and quercetin in human plasma affected the polyphenols, protected LDL from oxidation, and this was also observed. So I've already mentioned that these polyphenols and flavonoids had this protective free radical quenching activity, so preventing LDL from being oxidized was definitely noted as one of them. And then the paper entitled Biocide Potentiation using Synamic Phytochemicals and Derivatives clearly showed increased activity of an antibacterial solution like lactic acid when used in conjunction with the phytochemical allyl cinnamate in the treatment of E. coli on surfaces as an example of synergistic activity. All right, well, you probably had enough of that synergistic activity, right? And we'll get into the next subject. I just want to say that you listen to Ask Your Dr. KBD Garfield 91.1 FM. From now until the end of the show, 8 o'clock, you're invited to call in with any questions. The number is 707-923-3911, and we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to ask questions. Okay, so synthetic vitamins, synthetic versus natural. And Dr. Pete, as I said, was he really had a handful of substances that he would recommend outside of all the foods that he would talk about that were what he would recommend that you ate. Right? I mean, you can't disagree with that, can you?
That's why Dr. Pete would always suggest people eat eggs and liver, so they got their B vitamins. And their vitamin A comes from liver and eggs, whereas beta-carotene is what comes from orange vegetables. And if you have a poorly functioning liver, you're going to have a hard time converting that beta-carotene into vitamin A. Vitamin C comes from citrus fruits because, as Andrew I think is going to go into tonight, vitamin C, the process to manufacture vitamin C is extremely chemical. It's a chemical process, and a lot of people are allergic to it, and it's actually quite toxic. So Andrew has some more information to share with regards to other B vitamins that are toxic if they're not from a natural source and they're synthetically produced.
All right, so I think we can all agree, if you listen to Ask Your Herb Doctor, then you are probably wanting to tend towards more natural and hopefully more organic. And you're probably not a big fan of synthetic compounds and substances, right? Let's just kind of take that as a ballpark judgment. So natural vitamins then are more bioavailable, meaning they're more easily absorbed and utilized by the body than synthetic varieties. Unlike artificial nutrients, food-derived vitamins are often bound to other organic compounds such as amino acids or trace minerals, which act as essential cofactors. So it's just the same thing with synergy with these products I've just previously talked about. The same synergy happens with a quote-unquote a vitamin that you're going to get from a plant. The same way it's going to be completely different from a synthetically produced vitamin that is just the, ascorbic acid that we're going to get into in a bit. So, like I said, cofactors increase the bioavailability and absorption of nutrients by protecting them from degradation and facilitating transport across the cell membrane. Nothing happens in isolation. So in contrast, synthetic vitamins are produced in isolation and they lack cofactors, which significantly reduces their bioavailability. This explains why supplements made with artificial nutrients often contain extremely high doses to compensate for the poor absorption of the ingredients. Okay, we have a couple of callers on the air, so let's take this first caller. Call away from, what's your question? Okay, so are we talking about oral candida or vaginal candida, or we talk systemic candida? So how? I guess first things first. How was that diagnosed? What?
Well, for Lyme disease, about 15 years ago, I went on 2 years of antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
I have the alcohol problem that I'm controlling very well now.
Okay.
But I drank too much during that, and I have old injury in my upper back, wherever my whole back, and it kind of goes to those areas. And my foot, my one foot, the right foot, it gets these outbreaks if I white flour, sugar, alcohol, it's manifested in the body, and I'm certain that's what it has.
One really easy way to see if you do have candida is to take a yeast that I wouldn't recommend taking long term because all yeasts are estrogenic. But if you take this one yeast for about a month, you might find that your symptoms will get better if you do have candida because it outcompetes candida. And the yeast product, it's just normal baker's yeast, but the supplement that's available is called Saccharomyces boulardii. or you,
I'm taking that off and on, but I need to tackle my physiology.
yeah. So if you take that for about a month and you take maybe 2 capsules of 500 milligrams each a day, like once in the morning, once at night, if your symptoms don't improve with that, then I would I would think that you don't have intestinal candida overgrowth. And then other ways to just keep your yeast down in your intestines is, like raw carrot salad with lots of apple cider vinegar, because vinegar is very antifungal. Okay.
So that was also the Lyme disease and other things.
I understand.
I can't take the thing about acting mold now for me is the vinegar, corn, cheese, I'm supposed to not eat yeast. I eat a small amount of yeast with sprouted bread. I can't have any grains that are untreated. It's not repressed. Like the best grains, the best flour.
Right. So you're really careful with limiting the mold contamination in the foods you're eating.
I have been for about a month and a half to 2 months.
Okay.
It's been hard. The vinegar has always been a friend of mine. I make vinegar, but I have not been able. I've cut it out for the most part. I take a small amount sometimes, so that's the problem.
Okay. Well, you could put as much fresh squeezed lemon juice as you can tolerate on the grated raw carrot, and that kind of acts as not as potent of an antifungal. And then the other item is olive oil on that carrot salad, along with that lemon juice, helps complete an antimicrobial picture, helps to be more antibacterial for unwanted bacteria that could be residing in your intestines, because raw carrot fiber is undigestible, so it will travel down the whole length of the intestine.
Yeah, carrot and olive oil and lemon, and I got oregano oil.
Yeah, oregano oil is definitely indicated.
Yeah, oregano oil, and then garlic.
So is garlic, exactly.
Garlic is, but a lot of times it depends. If you have a candida in your lower intestine, most things are already digested by the time it gets down there. And so after you've tried all of those things, if you're still feeling like you have symptoms from candida, but you're not sure it's candida, you could try flowers of sulfur, which is sublime sulfur powder, and you could take a pinch of that for 5 to 7 days, one pinch. And that will travel throughout your whole intestine without getting completely digested and broken down. And
do you cook with coconut oil? Good, because that caprylic acid in it is actually anti-candida albicans.
And I also, I take it with I make the cannabis extract and low temperature, so it's not psychoactive. And I know you guys talked about estrogen being in cannabis, and I was wondering if I should even be doing that now.
Well, and then the other thing that can be useful is an intestinal stool test, where you're looking at if you have the presence of candida in your stool. They're not 100% accurate, but they can help with completing the picture.
Yeah,
thank you for your call.
Thank you. Okay, we've got 2 more callers. Let's take the next caller. Caller, you're on the air. Where you from? What's your question?
Actually, it's in response to the lady that was just talking. What I need to say to her is that I've been taking stevia weed for about.
Stevia. Okay. Stevia. Okay. Mm-hmm.
That just knocks out the candida entirely. I had a candida problem before because I had long ago.
Okay.
So if you eat sugar in addition to stevia, what the stevia is basically doing is knocking out the acidity of the sugar and creating an alkaline condition where the person is growth for those candida eaters out there among them.
Well, good for you. So if you found good results with that, maybe that other lady could try that. She may find out just a similar benefit. Thank you for your call. Okay, next caller. You're on the air. Where you from? What's your question? Hey, Jeff. What's your question?
Wondering, my A1 numbers were a little high for blood sugar.
Oh, A1C. Oh, you mean your fasting glucose, not your A1C number, right? Your fasting glucose was 106. Because you, no, no, A1C's got to be over 5.6 to be considered pre-diabetes or insulin resistant. Yeah, that's the fasting glucose. Mhm. Okay, so you can totally use things like psyllium seed husk, and that will modulate both your blood sugar and your cholesterol. Obviously, there's things like cinnamon. I mean, if you want to jump straight into the herbal stuff for blood sugar, cinnamon, then Galiga officinalis or goat's rue, that has been used. Coleus force. No, Galiga officinalis. If you look at it, it's actually known as a galactagogue for producing milk in nursing mothers, but it does have a hypoglycemic
It's
effect.
actually what they created.
Metformin with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Metformin from was Galiga, which is called goat's rue. It's an herb, and you use the leafy flowering part.
And then Coleus forskolii is another good one with plenty of research behind it for lowering, blood glucose over time. So, and again, quite a small dose, about 100 milligrams of a 20% forskolin Coleus extract.
And then the other thing about pre-diabetes or diabetes is keep your stress hormones, keep your cortisol down, because that is really what causes a lot of diabetic problems.
Sure.
Yes, exercise is always important to keep your stress levels down too. And we're not talking about like, running for 10 miles. We're talking about weightlifting exercise in combination with aerobic exercise. Mix it up. Don't do too much aerobic because that just stresses your body out. You need to mix it up with weight-bearing exercises.
And I don't know if you are, but if you have any weight to shed, that would be a really good idea. And that exercise will do that, and it will switch on your whole anabolic process. Being male, if you've got muscle that you can use to gently lift weights, anytime you can stimulate testosterone production in the male with the muscles that they're using, that will totally help to bring down circulating blood glucose, and over time will reduce A1C. But
And
obesity is
that testosterone will also help your body fight the cortisol.
I definitely have some weight to lose and
Yeah.
Well, then you might want to consider also taking something like pregnenolone to help you through that stressful time, and adaptogenic herbs like our triple ginseng blend, where we have a lot of different ginsengs in there, because those will help modulate your cortisol levels as you go through that stressful period.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your call.
Take care. All the best.
Is there another caller on? No. Okay. So the number, if you'd like to call, is 707-923-3911. We're going to get into the whole synthetic vitamin thing, and most people out there probably taking vitamin C don't even realize that it's been produced from GMO corn, sugar, and bacterial organisms. I mean, for crying out loud, this is why Dr. Pete would always talk about orange juice, folks. I mean, on the supplement, on the supplement fact label. So if you pick up a bottle of anything, now fortunately in the States I'm not saying I'm a lover of England or Europe, I'm not, but they started labeling stuff back in the 80s. I mean, you turn the packet around, or the bottle, or the tin, or and you'd find the supplement fact panel listing everything in it. It was just part of shopping, and everyone used to be looking at labels. I mean, here I think most people don't. I think it's only just started, and they've only just started to be required to label these things.
Well, I think a natural source of vitamin C would be like, it'd say vitamin C from rose hips, or it would say rose hip powder.
Right. Acerola cherry, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you need to be looking. But really, there's so much vitamin C in citrus, and we're still in the citrus time of year, that's a great source. And even potatoes, if you don't boil them, if you fry them in coconut oil, there's another source of vitamin C. Leafy greens are high in vitamin C.
Absolutely.
So there are a lot of foods that are high in vitamin C. And if you can't get oranges, you can always make yourself a glass of lemonade with honey. There's a bunch of vitamin C.
Okay. I think the engineer's juggling callers. Okay, we've got another caller on the air. Okay, so caller, you're on the air. Where are you from, and what's your question? Hello? Caller, you're on the air. Where are you from? What's your question? Okay, well, what's your questions? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So give me some advice. I have a family member who's suffering, and
Yeah. Okay. It's a what's the word for it? I'm not too sure that there's a lot of really well understood science about Morgellons because it is fairly controversial. And like, I think the main things are people get these persistent, dysmorphia. Their kind of skin is itching or there's something, they feel like something's crawling on it. And I know, yeah. Okay. I mean, that in its own right is not really a kind of a woo-woo diagnosis, but I think other Morgellon symptoms have been where people are basically seeing they're having things coming out of their skin. I mean, like organisms, like tiny threadworms and other quote unquote sci-fi alien type stuff, right? I'm not saying I'm dissing it. I'm just saying that that can be the extreme end of Morgellons. Um,
what my friend is suffering from.
yeah. Um,
So,
you
I
know,
mean, really, if they can have something tested that they do remove from their skin,
yeah,
because,
that would be
you
the
know,
best
like
thing.
if you go to Belize, I
Right.
had a friend that went
Like
to
guinea worms
Belize
or something.
and she got those worms that embedded into her foot.
Right. And you can pull them out
And
and you go, wow, look at
and
this.
you know, it does happen, and you
Uh-huh.
know, she couldn't understand why her foot was burning and felt like there was something crawling in there and irritating. And you know what? There was something in there. So you know, there's always that possibility that you have parasites on your skin. I mean,
Yeah.
scabies, those are parasites on your skin, okay? They cause a rash and they're
Right.
very itchy. But the other thing too, I just want to mention some things that can cause the symptoms that are similar to this. And when your liver's not functioning properly,
Yeah,
it can
definitely.
be allergy. You can get this like
Yeah. Liver.
crawling kind of
Hmm.
skin condition
Hmm.
if you're allergic to certain foods. Low blood sugar can trigger a histamine release in people who run on the edge of low blood sugar or hypoglycemia. And that can also give you that itchy skin crawling sensation. So, you know, doing some blood work, basic blood work, and
Yeah,
looking
that
into
would be a good
that
start.
would be a good start. You know, salt baths, Epsom salt baths. Epsom salt baths can help. You know, not too hot. Don't put the water too hot to just try to calm down the skin surface if it is from something other than an actual parasite.
Well, it is plays itself through uh, follicle growth and then grow back into the skin, especially around the eyes and ears.
Okay.
And then this blocking of the skin as well of irritation from, and I mean, uh, this individual doesn't use alcohol. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, they follow a mostly vegetarian, organic diet.
Hmm.
Um, and this needs to crop up. And we just found ourselves in a place where I have a hyperthyroid. For males who have a hyperthyroid, go ahead and find any research on men have 7% of the time it's women. And I have found similar dissatisfaction with trying to research mortality.
Hmm.
Uh,
It's
and
basically from this.
that's why
Right. Well,
salt bath is something we recommend.
one other thing with the when you're talking about the skin, the follicle or the folliculitis or any kind of bizarre hair growth or follicles on the skin that aren't behaving normally, is vitamin A can really help normalize follicle
And not
hair growth
synthetic
and
vitamin
not synthetic, so a
A.
natural source.
Liver.
As much as we're opposed to fish oil, halibut liver oil is actually really high in vitamin A without having to consume too much of the omega 3 oil in the fish oil. So it's you just a tiny little capsule
Liver would have it too.
of halibut liver, but you have to eat, you know, 4 ounces of beef liver has about 10,000 IU
Right, it's not that
of
high.
vitamin A. And if you don't eat liver, that's a problem because that's really the only source besides eggs, when eggs don't have as much vitamin A as liver. So that could be something for them to try is halibut liver oil, because you don't have to take tablespoons of cod liver oil to get the same amount of vitamin A.
So just lastly, what it might be worth your while with this. Sarah did mention liver liver disorders, and there's a very classic sign of liver disease. You know, I call it a disease, but liver disease is itching. So itching is well known and well associated with liver disease, and so I think some simple blood work would totally show. I mean, really, a $30 metabolic panel would do your ALT, AST, or this person's ALT, AST, and you'll do some other simple, you know, metabolic tests for kidney function and blood sugar, etc. It could be worth looking at that because it can be, and things that are going to support the liver could be very useful for that. And then, yeah, like you said, for Epsom salt baths, or if you have any histamine type responses that this person's not aware of, that could be inducing this crawly, creepy kind of skin.
And good herbs that they could try as well, just to help the liver, is burdock and dandelion root decoction, where you boil those up and make a tea. I know we do have another caller on the line.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, thank you for your call. Okay, caller. Next caller, you're on the air. Where are you from? What's your question? Hmm? Hmm? Right. Hmm. How old a person are we talking about? 72 or 73?
Well, first off, there are safer anesthetics than others. And the one that Dr. B always recommended people have if they had to have a surgery was propofol. And it's a short-acting anesthetic. And the thing also, what happens with that is they usually mix it with an opiate. So I know that you're wanting us to talk about after the effects, but before, that is something that if I ever had to have a surgery, I would request propofol with no opiate. And then after the fact, if you did have an opiate drug when you had it, Dr. Pete would go on about how it upregulates your opiate receptors, and post-surgery, if you've had any opiates, is a really good idea to take a low-dose naltrexone for just like 7 to 10 days to knock those out, because what happens is you upregulate the number of receptors to accumulate the opiate, and then after the opiate's gone, your body goes, hey, wait a minute, we have all these receptors that need opiate, let's make some. And your body actually makes more, and opiates are made by your body. They're called endogenous, but they are inflammatory. No matter whether they kill the pain or not, the pain is still there, and they actually increase overall inflammation. So post-surgical stress can be as a result of those opiate receptors being upregulated, and they need to be shut back down with some naltrexone that blocks the receptors and lowers it. No, I mentioned propofol as one of the safer anesthetics to have if you have to have a surgery. And
Yeah.
other than that, St. John's wort is always a good herb to take post-surgery and for nerve conditions or anything that you've had that's affected your nerves internally and externally, where you might have had the surgery, to rub St. John's wort oil, which should be a red oil if it's extracted properly.
Okay, so let's see here, 7:54. We better not probably take any more callers, because that way we won't be rushed. Okay, good. All right, so I just wanted to speak quickly to that person with the candida, that yes, the subject of biofilm busters, especially for SIBO, is becoming pretty vogue. Same thing for candida. Biofilms do exist, and they can make it very difficult for antifungal herbal products like oregano oil to get to the candida. So it could be worth utilizing that. I mentioned caprylic acid from coconut oil. So
Berberine from Berberis
yeah, they've
vulgaris or
already tried that.
barberry is also, I know you're already taking that,
They've
but
already
that's
tried that,
also good to take in combination with the other antifungals, like the flowers of sulfur.
Yeah, okay, so let's see here. Next March, we're looking at, what have we got here? Where are we? March. Going to be the 21st of March, isn't it? So Until the 21st of March, we look forward to being back on air 7 till 8 o'clock on KMUD Garberville 91.1 FM. And so we'll continue what I hardly started was the synthetic versus natural vitamin debate and all the evidence to support the natural side of it. And then I want to get into Bill Gates's GMO Frankenfood debacle and how that all plays into the whole vitamin fortified cereal, fortified, whatever it is, it's fortified with vitamins, and how he wants to supply the whole world with it.
And I just want to apologize to people who might have tried to live stream us on YouTube. We did have some issues tonight with getting the audio feed from the studio into the live stream. So hopefully next month we'll do a better job at that.
Okay, so you can find us on YouTube at Western Botanical Medicine and also on the web, westernbotanicalmedicine.com. We have a Twitter handle, which is at WBMHerb. We can be Googled, etc., etc. We've been practicing herbal medicine for the best part of 26 years now. And yeah, I look forward to joining you back in March, March the 21st, I think I said, from 7 till 8 p.m. My name's Andrew Murray.
My name's Sarah Johannesson Murray. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your evening.
You've always told us we've got to wrap it up because there's no time. Say again? Go on. Depends what the biopsy is. Depends where, but...
Well, it depends. If it's like skin cancer, or is it internal organs? Do you know? You don't know. Okay, well, there's always a risk with a biopsy, if you're having a biopsy for cancer, that it can cause an irritation because it increases vascular endothelial growth factor every time you cut your skin, which actually feeds the cancer. So you have to weigh that into the equation of whether you need that biopsy or not. And if it's skin cancer, that's particularly prevalent, the VEGF on the surface of the skin. And there are effective over-the-counter treatments for many, many types of skin cancer.
So it's difficult
So
to
I don't know
exactly what cancer it is we're talking
Yeah,
about.
I don't know what biopsy you're inquiring about, but there's some.
Dr. Pete always said that cutting into any tissues is not a good idea if you can possibly avoid it, because the alarm reaction is a reality in the cell. It's not a woo-woo subject. It's an actually physiological and scientifically proven event. So you're talking about all sorts of chemoattractants and cells just becoming on guard and just mobilization and spread.
The benefits have to outweigh that risk.
Yeah, they do for sure.